grab a snack, drink, whatever, because today we are going to be talking about John Wayne Gacy. And if you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown, is an American serial killer who unalived at least 33 young men and boys. So starting off, John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17th, 1942 in Edgewater, Illinois. He was the second of three children and the only son of John Stanley Gacy and Marion Elaine Robinson. I'm going to be referring to John Wayne Gacy by his last name, Gacy, because I feel like it's kind of weird to be like, oh, John. But anyways, Gacy was close to his mother and his two sisters, but had a difficult relationship with his father, who was an alcoholic and very verbally and physically abusive to the family. His father would often belittle Gacy, calling him dumb and stupid, and compare him to his sisters unfavorably. And as a child, Gacy was very overweight and he had health issues, including a heart condition, and this condition limited his ability to play in sports, which made him a target for bullying. And in his teen years, he realized that he was attracted to men, but he kept this a secret because of his father's homophobia, and then also the time period, this was not accepted to be gay. Gacy says that he tried to build a normal life. In the early 1960s, he moved to Las Vegas to work in a mortuary, and it was here that he exhibited some very troubling behavior. He slept in a coffin with a deceased body, which is just not okay. And in 1964, Gacy married. He married Marlon Myers and moved to Waterloo, Ohio, where he managed a KFC franchise owned by her father. And Gacy describes this period as a perfect time in his life. He had finally earned his father's approval, and his father even apologized for the abuse he inflicted on him, saying he was wrong about him. However, in August of 1967, Gacy essayed 15-year-old Donald Voorhees Jr., the son of Donald Edwin Voorhees, a local politician and fellow Gacy. Gacy lured Voorhees to his house with the promise of showing him heterosexual stag films, which were regularly played at Gacy events. He gave Voorhees a lot of alcohol, allowed him to watch the movie, and then persuaded him to engage in oral sex, saying, "You have to have sex with a man before you start to have sex with a woman." And over the following months, Gacy abused several young men and boys, including one that he encouraged to have sex with his own wife before blackmailing him into performing oral sex on him. Gacy also tricked several teenagers into believing he was commissioned to conduct homosexual experiments for scientific research, and he would pay each of them $50. And in March of 1968, Voorhees told his father what Gacy had been doing to him, and Voorhees, of course, immediately informed the police, who arrested Gacy and charged him with performing oral sodomy on Voorhees and the attempted assault of 16-year-old Edward Lynch. Gacy completely denied these charges, but he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but got out after 18 months for good behavior. He only served a year and a half. And while he was in prison, his wife divorced him and his father died, which left him very devastated, actually, despite the fact that his father was very abusive. And after Gacy got out, he relocated to Chicago to live with his mother. And Gacy, with the financial help of his mother, was able to purchase a modest ranch-style house. And Gacy's neighbors said that he was a helpful and community-oriented man. He plowed snow, lent out tools, and even hosted annual summer parties that would bring in hundreds of guests, including politicians and business associates. And in 1971, Gacy started PDM Contractors, which was a part-time construction business. And with time, the company was actually to grow pretty rapidly. By 1978, PDM was generating over $200,000 annually. And I'm pretty sure that was $200,000 in 1978, which means if you were to convert that to today's money, that would be about $1 million a year. However, a lot of the people he hired were young boys, and a lot of them became victims of Gacy's. Gacy even propositioned employees for sexual favors and on several occasions threatened them with violence. One worker even recalls Gacy saying, "Do you know how easy it would be to kill you and get rid of your body?" But anyways, in 1975, Gacy joined a local clown club through the Moose Lodge. And he created two clown personas, Pogo, the cheerful clown, and Patches, a more serious character. He would perform at parties, parades, and hospitals, and actually made a lot of people happy. And Gacy later admitted that turning into a clown allowed him to regress into his childhood, and this seemingly harmless pastime ended up turning into something a lot more sinister because he earned the name the Killer Clown for a reason. Because between 1972 and 1978, Gacy unalived at least 33 young men and boys. Many of his victims were lured to his house under the guise of job offers, parties, or simply a friendly ride, and once there, Gacy would do horrifying things. What he would do is he would cuff himself and would feign innocence and then free himself with a hidden key, and then he would convince his victim to do the same thing. And when his victim agreed, Gacy would restrain them, initiate hours of torture and essay before ultimately killing them. And 26 of his victims were buried in the crawl space beneath his house, and when he ran out of space, he disposed of their bodies in the nearby Des Plaines River. And what's terrifying is that despite his horrifying crimes, he maintained an active role in his community. He became precinct captain for the Democratic Party and even supervised the annual Polish Constitution Parade. And in 1978, Gacy was photographed with First Lady Rosalynn Carter wearing a Secret Service clearance pin, which is crazy considering this was during the time where he was committing his unalivings. But the beginning of the end came for Gacy in December of 1978 when Robert Piest went missing. And police linked Piest to Gacy because Gacy had offered him a job. They obtained a permit to search Gacy's home, and they revealed several items belonging to several missing boys, along with evidence pointing to his crimes. Because like I said, he used to bury his victims in the crawlspace, so on December 21st, police uncovered human remains in the crawlspace. And Gacy confessed to unaliving over 30 victims, coldly referring to them as his property. And Gacy's trial began in February of 1980. The defense attempted an insanity plea, presenting him as a man controlled by multiple personalities. Prosecution, however, demonstrated that Gacy's crimes were deliberate and premeditated. However, after deliberation, the jury found Gacy guilty of 33 unalivings, and he was sentenced to death. And of course, while Gacy was on death row, he took up painting and would paint many works featuring clowns. And on May 10th, 1994, after years of appeals, Gacy was executed by lethal injection. And his last words were, "Kiss my ass." And yeah, that is John Wayne Gacy. I really wish that I could get into more detail, but I wanted to keep it pretty condensed. It's a pretty long case. Please let me know your thoughts about John Wayne Gacy, and I'll see you next time.